Oh everyone, welcome back to the That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime summary series on AniMonolith. Following the events of the previous part, after Chloe led Hinata's soul to an unknown place, Rimuru, Leon, and Luminous were left standing in stunned silence. While Rimuru and Leon seemed lost in thought, Luminous was desperately trying to resurrect Hinata using her ultimate skill. However, it was completely hopeless because you cannot revive someone when their soul has disappeared. Rimuru understood that Luminous was already aware of this fact, but typically a soul wouldn't vanish so quickly. Something must have happened. That tiny chance, however small, was enough for Luminous to keep trying. She knew that if she stopped, she would regret it for the rest of her life. Rimuru also blamed himself. Everything had happened right before his eyes. People seek power to protect those they love, but in this case, that power had proven useless. This realization shook Rimuru deeply, making it difficult for him to remain calm. But then, Luminous's furious scream as she charged at Granbell snapped him back to reality. Rimuru quickly regained his composure. This was a battlefield. There was no time to grieve. The only way to make sure Hinata didn't die in vain was to defeat the enemy. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted from the Grand Cathedral, followed by a blinding light and thick clouds of dust. Rimuru instantly activated Uriel to protect the children and the orchestra. At the same time, he noticed that Diablo had returned. Without hesitation, Diablo created a powerful barrier to shield everyone. Worried for his subordinates, Rimuru glanced over at Shion and Ranga. They were still struggling against Razul. Unlike Diablo and Ranga, Shion was completely focused on her battle, so much so that she hadn't even noticed the explosion. Her intense, battle-hardened expression, mixed with the blood splattered on her face, made her look both terrifying and mesmerizing. Two heavenly treasures bouncing amidst the smoke and flames. Truly a breathtaking sight, Rimuru thought to himself. Razul was strong, but since Shion and Ranga refused to back down, Rimuru decided to let them continue their fight. Instead, he focused on finding the source of the explosion. An overwhelming aura suddenly surged through the battlefield. The air became suffocatingly heavy. A chill ran down Rimuru's spine. This energy, it felt eerily similar to Chloe's. Warning. Target possesses a physical body. Abnormal energy detected. Power level equivalent to Veldora. This time, Raphael provided a detailed report on an absolute monster. As the dust settled, a stunningly beautiful woman appeared at the center of the explosion. She was completely naked, with long, flowing black-silver hair and a glowing aura surrounding her. A dangerously perfect combination capable of causing a nosebleed. For a brief moment, Rimuru felt like he was hypnotized. The woman remained still, her eyes closed as an ethereal light shimmered around her. Then, Luminous's furious voice cut through the tension. "The one who stole my holy ark! You even unsealed the holy barrier and awakened Cronoa." Rimuru followed her gaze and spotted Yuki standing in the distance. As he had suspected, Yuki was behind everything. Standing beside Yuki were two masked figures, Footman and Laplace, members of the moderate clown troupe. Rimuru wasn't surprised. Raphael had already exposed Yuki's schemes earlier, so seeing him here only confirmed what Rimuru had expected. When Luminous angrily demanded to know how Yuki had broken the Holy Ark's seal, he casually revealed his unique skill, Anti-Skill, which could completely nullify all abilities in magic. Usually, people never reveal their skills so openly, but Yuki had no choice. Rimuru had already figured it out. Turning to Granbell, Yuki questioned why he couldn't control the hero sealed inside the Ark. In fact, she had broken free on her own sealed. That question shocked Rimuru. Wait, that black-haired woman is a hero? Then why would a demon lord like Luminous be guarding her? Luminous corrected him, saying that while this woman may have once been known as a hero, she was no longer one. Now she was something far more terrifying. A demonic entity known as Cronoa. The sheer concern in Luminous's voice made Rimuru realize this Cronoa must be incredibly dangerous. Meanwhile, Granbell and Luminous continued their fierce battle, both equally matched. However, Granbell's attention was constantly shifting toward the black-haired woman. He then turned to Yuki and smirked. "I should thank you, Yuki, for breaking the seal on the Holy Ark. That was my plan all along." It was not that Yuki was manipulating him, but quite the opposite. Granbell also said that Cronoa was an entity that no one here could resist. So let's all die. At that moment, Chronoa moved. She gently shook her head, then she opened her eyes. She had no emotions, no reason. She was nothing more than a mindless, unstoppable killing machine. And with that, the battlefield descended into absolute chaos. He needed to focus entirely on dealing with the woman in front of him. Without hesitation, he ordered Diablo to handle all other matters in his place. Diablo, although clearly eager to join the fight, obediently followed his master's command after seeing Rimuru's serious expression. In a split second, Rimuru analyzed the battlefield. Shion and Ranga were still locked in battle with Razul. Luminous was occupied fighting Granbell. Leon looked completely out of it. He could not be trusted as an ally in battle. That left Yuki and Chronoa as the biggest threats. Yuki would likely try to escape at some point. Given the current situation, Rimuru had no choice but to let him go. For now. With such analysis, Rimuru realized that he was being too careless in front of the destructive entity standing before him. Chronoa. And she was preparing to engage in battle. Rimuru noticed that the woman was wearing Holy Spirit armor, the same bracelet that Hinata had given to Chloe earlier. Then, black particles began spreading across Chronoa's body. In the blink of an eye, they transformed into jet black armor, even stronger than the original Holy Spirit armor. Additionally, she summoned a rapier that resembled Hinata's Moonlight Rapier, but with one key difference. Its blade was now completely black. Warning, despite its identical shape, the energy stored inside is immense. Raphael's report implied that Chronoa's armor and weapon were not just legendary grade, they had likely surpassed even that level. Could they be mythical grade weapons? A sense of despair crept into Rimuru's mind. If those weapons were powerful enough to bypass his defenses, then... Warning. Enemy Chronoa will... Before Raphael could even finish, a black streak of energy ripped through the air, slicing through the space where Rimuru had just been standing. The attack was composed of countless spirit particles, disintegrating everything in its path instantly. Fortunately, Rimuru had already sensed the impending danger and activated Absolute Defense just in time, narrowly dodging the attack. With Absolute Defense, I should be safe, right? Negative. Absolute Defense cannot completely neutralize spirit particles. The only solution was to predict the target's movements and use the other spirit particles to cancel each other out. Even so, the enemy's attack speed is greater than anticipated, making accurate predictions difficult. In short, Raphael was telling Rimuru one critical fact. Absolute Defense is not absolute, which meant dodging was the only viable option. But avoiding Chronoa's attacks was extremely difficult. Each strike was faster than light and completely unpredictable. Even though Rimuru had miraculously dodged the first attack, he felt that he deserved a medal just for surviving it. Then Chronoa shifted her attention to Yuki. A single slash, faster than light, cut his cheek. Watching that happen, Rimuru couldn't help but feel a little bit satisfied. But more importantly, this attack confirmed something crucial. Chronoa's attacks could actually injure Yuki. That meant they were purely physical attacks. With this information, Rimuru hoped that he would have more time to observe and evaluate his opponent's strength. Just then, Raphael made a bold suggestion. Summon Veldora. Rimuru hesitated. Veldora was his trump card, and using him in front of so many people would expose too much. But there was no other choice. Fine, let's do it. Across their shared connection, Veldora responded with a lazy tone. Rimuru, are you happy now after ditching me on my hiking trip? Rimuru froze. This dragon actually thought of Lubelius as a sightseeing spot? Setting aside Veldora's childish attitude, Rimuru sincerely pleaded, Veldora, we need you. Please come and help us. For some reason, Veldora paused for a moment. Then, he agreed to be summoned. And with that, a violent gust of wind rippled through the Grand Cathedral. Super Saiyan Veldora-kun was coming to Lubelius. At this moment, Chronoa was still chasing Yuki. His entire body was drenched in sweat. This entity was far more powerful and ruthless than Rimuru. He understood that this place was too dangerous and had to find a way to escape. Suddenly, a magic missile shot toward Chronoa. Yuki traced the attack back to its source. It was Thea. She had intentionally drawn Chronoa's attention toward Leon, and it worked. As for the Platinum Sword King, Leon had been in a daze ever since Rimuru called out Chloe's name. He had spent centuries searching for her, only for her to vanish right before his eyes. Leon then turned his gaze toward Chronoa. This woman was beyond anything he had imagined. She had effortlessly forced Rimuru into a defensive stance with just a single slash, and had been toying with Yuki like a homeowner shooing away a stray dog. Leon understood the threat she posed. Now that she had locked her gaze on him, he had no time to dwell on the past. Gripping his sword tightly, he rushed into battle. Meanwhile, Yuki used this distraction to break Lubelius's barrier and escape with his subordinates. Rimuru clenched his fists in frustration, but quickly pushed aside his anger. He realized that Yuki had lost all credibility in the Western nations. With Luminous's influence, Yuki's reputation and authority would be completely destroyed, but only if they all survived this battle. With that in mind, Rimuru focused entirely on summoning Veldora. In the next moment, Veldora arrived in Lubelius. Rimuru, isn't that the hero who sealed me away? She definitely is. Even without the mask, I recognize that face and those lips. I was right, she's beautiful. Veldora rarely complimented anyone's looks. This reaction made Rimuru highly suspicious that the real reason Veldora lost to Cronoa in the past was because he fell in love at first punch. So, fate has given me a second chance, Veldora declared dramatically. Rimuru, may I fight her? Of course. That's exactly why I summoned you. Regardless, since Cronoa had sealed Veldora before, Rimuru wasn't sure if his dragon friend could actually win. Veldora constantly boasted that he had matured in his human form, but Rimuru secretly doubted that. Still, even if Veldora lost, he would simply revive, so Rimuru felt no guilt at all letting him go all out against Cronoa. Meanwhile, Rimuru rushed to Leon's side. Leon was exhausted, covered in wounds, and his sword had been shattered. Rimuru thought back to how Leon had held off Cronoa just to give him time to summon Veldora. He really gave it his all, Rimuru thought, but Leon was incredibly unlucky. He had finally found Chloe, only for her to disappear again. And then she came back just to beat him to a pulp. Tough luck. This time, Veldora did not go alone on the field trip, but insisted on bringing Charis along. And in the midst of the intense battlefield, Leon suddenly reunited with Ifrit. Watching them exchange formal greetings, Rimuru suddenly realized something. These two are seriously alike. Charis bowed respectfully to Leon. I now serve Veldora-sama. I also apologize for misunderstanding your intentions before. I now realize you wanted me to live peacefully with Shizue. Leon was used to things that made people misunderstand, so he did not blame Ifrit. Immediately after, Leon looked at Rimuru with a serious expression and told him to give him a little more time to prepare his trump card. That's a noble resolve, Rimuru thought. Leon could have escaped any time, but instead, he chose to stay and fight. Rimuru respected that. Right after that, he decided to leave Charis to guard Leon, while he charged straight towards the battlefield. At this moment, the story shifts to a mysterious, bottomless abyss. Hinata was standing on the edge, staring into the darkness. In a fleeting moment, a flood of memories surged through her mind. Some were familiar, some long forgotten. She had once lived a normal life with her family, but after her father's company went bankrupt, he fell into gambling, accumulating massive debts. In desperation, Hinata made a terrifying choice. She killed him to claim his life insurance money. Her mother, witnessing this, lost her sanity. Hinata planned to kill her too, but before she could, she was transported to this world. She had lived ever since with the weight of her sins, hating her father for what he had done to their family. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was merely justifying her own cruelty. If only we had faced our struggles together as a family, perhaps things wouldn't have ended in tragedy. For years, Hinata had pursued justice, a desperate attempt to atone for her past. But no matter how many good deeds she performed, her past never faded. Then, she met that man. Hinata saw the shadow of her father in him, but this time, it was different. He was kind-hearted, so much so that she felt he would forgive her, no matter how dark her past was. She knew it would be troublesome if she confessed her feelings to him. But still, she sometimes wondered, what if he accepted me? Granbell had told her to find peace in her heart, and perhaps that's what he meant. But she couldn't. She couldn't forgive herself. She was tired of the past, the present, and the future. She just wanted to rest. And so, Hinata let the abyss consume her. She closed her eyes. She had no regrets. You can't sleep, a voice rang out. Hinata's eyes snapped open. She saw a floating window in the air. Hinata immediately wondered what kind of situation she was in. Wasn't she dead? Noticing that, Chloe explained that Hinata was inside her, and would tell her more specifically after Hinata assimilated with it. Focusing on the direction of the voice, Hinata saw a beam of light. Following Chloe's words, she walked towards it. Hinata's night-like consciousness was immediately replaced by a rainbow-colored light. Chloe then explained specifically that Hinata was inside her soul. If Hinata hadn't done so, she would have been swallowed by the infinite prison. Hinata gradually understood that the black abyss was the infinite prison, and that she was a soul. Chloe continued to explain that instead of Hinata's soul disappearing into the air when she died, it somehow transferred to her body. In addition, they were currently in ancient times. Chloe's firm assertion made Hinata suspicious. She looked around and realized that the location they were in was indeed Lubelius. But this place was just a grassland and there were no cities or villages. That is, just as Chloe said,
Time travel!
Hinata and the girl had traveled through time to the ancient era, and from this point on, it would be about 2,000 years before Luminous moved its country here. The reason Chloe could assert so firmly was because this was not the first time she had done so. Every time Chloe lost control of her power, she would return to the past and had also been to this place before. With those words, Hinata gradually calmed down and accepted Chloe's explanation. She understood that she had been saved and traveled through time. She needed to learn more about this matter first. Hinata listened to Chloe continue, and today's video would also end here. Thank you for listening, hello, and see you again in the next videos of AniMonolith.